Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business, but you knew that. Hey, I've got Laurie Gardner on. She's the author of the book, The Road to Shine, and I happen to have several copies of that great book. I only just got my hands on it, Laurie, I'm afraid. I got my hands on it yesterday, but I am looking at it, I'm reading it, and I'm grateful for you sending us extra copies, and I'm going to be giving away copies of it here on the program in the days to come. I want to do it after I've become more familiar with it, and we're going to figure out a way that we want to give it away. But Laurie, thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries. Sounds great.
Laurie, kind of tell us about yourself. Tell us your story.
All right. Well, for me, I was about to turn 40. I won't tell you exactly how long ago that was. And I was running an internationally renowned school reform organization, coaching the top CEOs, state governors, world business leaders, and on the outside, really successful, very cheerful as a person, but underneath the mask, truthfully, I was dying inside. And I know a lot of you can relate to this, but I was just really, really tired. I was a workaholic. I was stressed out all the time. Again, still not married and lonely, and I won't even tell you what I was doing to my health with all this stress. And so I just reached this point where I felt like, okay, yeah, I'm successful at work, but is this all there is to my life? There has to be something more. And so I ran off, and I had to get away from cell phones and email, and I ran off to the desert for a week and fasted. And while I was out there, I ended up writing The Road to Shine in my leather journal in 4 days. Mm-hmm. And what came out were 3 really clear steps of, how can we stop settling for less? Why do you do that? Why are we staying in jobs where we're not happy, or relationships? And these 3 steps of how to live more fully came out.
Yeah.
And
Laura, I'm going to have a bunch of questions, and we have a really short time frame.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I'm gonna kind of jump in a little bit and try to get on some specific topics. So you wrote the book, and it sounds like it was a manifesto almost in terms of the passion and how quickly it came out. What specifically were you trying to address? And what type of reader were you trying to address in writing that book?
Well, when the book came out, it was really geared toward anyone who felt like there has to be something more to my life. And when I went back to work, it occurred to me, these same 3 steps apply to my business. Why isn't my business as effective as it could be? Why can't I and my business thrive? And that's when I came up with the happy, crappy business model as well.
The happy, crappy business model. All right, I like that. Tell me about those 3 steps.
Sure. Well, look, the happy, crappy business model really briefly is each of those has a different set of mindsets. The crappy mindset in business, one organization quickly, an example, from the top down, nobody felt really engaged. Everyone felt overworked, underpaid. They weren't being very productive. And as a result, they were getting crappy results, crappy mindset, not meeting their goals. On the flip side, when I did a motivational talk for another organization, they were just pumped afterward and planning their next steps and how to take the organization to the next level. They had a happy mindset. They exceeded their strategic and business goals that quarter. And so for me, the 3 steps really parallel how to have the happy mindset, not the crappy mindset in business.
Okay. Let's talk real quickly about each step.
Sure. Let me start with the most important one. The most important one is uncovering your blind spots as an organization. And by that, I mean, what are the things you don't even see that are holding you back from being as effective as you can be? And a quick example there, I worked with a startup in Northern California, and I was coaching the CEO, Stu, and he was very much driven in this innovative product and excited about getting it out to the world. But after a year and a half, they weren't getting the clients they wanted. They weren't meeting their financial goals. And he was really aware of the logistical problems, the distributor, the manufacturer. What he didn't know is that the admin staff felt completely overworked and underpaid in this startup. And they were complaining about him and work at the water cooler. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't until we had a meeting about effective communication and openness that this came to the table. And only at that point were they able to do something about it and make some changes.
Yeah, very good. Next one.
Yeah, and so then the next step is okay, what as an organization is our passion and our purpose? Are we really feeling or filling the market niche we want? And I worked with an environmental group back in Maine that was all about greening the music industry, biodiesel buses for the rock stars, recyclables at the concerts. And when I first started off with them, they had this huge list of every possible thing that the industry needed and who was filling it and how they were going to do it. 5 years later, they felt like failures because they were only doing 2 of the 10 things on this massive deliverable chart they had. And so we had some really focused conversations about, well, the reason why you're doing those 2 things, which in their case were greening the actual tours and educating fans, is because that's what they were passionate about. And they had to realize, instead of trying to cover so much, what we really love doing as an organization are these 2 things. And they got really good in the next 10 years at those 2 things.
And then the last step.
Yeah, and then the last step is really about the courage to make the changes you need to make in order to have your organization be as effective as you want. And I do use the word courage very deliberately. And so just a quick example of that one, there was another group that I worked with in Las Vegas. And their big concern, look, they did what they were doing really well for 30 years, but they were working with the same market niche. And they decided that they really wanted to branch out to more minorities. And so, they looked at successful models and they brought in some trainers, but truthfully, they didn't really fund it or put in enough staff time and effort to making it work. So a year later, they call me and we really wanted to branch out to minorities. It wasn't working. And I had to sort of point out, you guys were way too timid about it. You starved the effort. You can't only, be half-hearted about it and then say, how come we didn't get there? They needed to have more courage in doing the expansion they wanted.
Yeah, very good. Thanks so much for being with us. I appreciate it so much. Enjoyed the conversation. Do you want to encourage the listener to check out Laurie, that's Laurie, Gardner, GARDNER.com, LaurieGardner.com, The Road to Shine. We're going to be giving away copies of that here on The Price of Business in the days to come. Laurie, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to end by saying that, you can have a happy, successful business. And you can apply the same steps in The Road to Shine of how to get more out of your life to getting more out of your business so both you and your company thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, today's show brought to you in part by 4Guys Interactive. You're listening to The Price of Business.
She ain't got